Hey guys, it's so lovely being you, isn't it? Look at yourself in the mirror today and tell yourself that you love yourself. Because you have to show love to yourself first, okay? Love is love. Let's get into it. Okay, growing up, I grew up with a brother who I knew more so than anyone else because he was always there. We fought like cats and dogs. I mean, sometimes it was just horrible because he would get on my nerves so badly. I remember one time I was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he kept on doing things, poking me, hitting me in my head, all kinds of things. I didn't understand what the heck was going on with him. So I was using this butter knife making the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and my mother was all the way in the bedroom, and something told her to come into that kitchen, and she came at the right time, because that butter knife, we was fighting with that, and I had that butter knife in my hand. I didn't realize I still had that butter knife in my hand, but having that butter knife in my hand and knowing that I could have done something that I had no business doing, my mother took the butter knives out of the kitchen. We no longer were allowed to use the butter knives. And when I think back on that day, that is the reason why I don't think that that anyone should have so many rights to guns and to all these different equipment to unearth another individual. Because just like corruption, we all know that there's certain things that we might do if given different opportunities, and we can't afford that as a society to continue to hurt and harm others. So I put myself on the line with that one and tell you that, I don't know what I would have done because I don't know. All I know is I was not in my right frame of mind. And I know that as a child, I had that butter knife in my hand and he was irking my last nerve. Now, I don't think that I would really hurt my own brother, but who knows? This is important that we look at these things. When children are young, you see certain patterns. When you see those patterns and you notice those patterns, your job is to basically come into the situation, try to help that child to either fix the problem or in some way, fix the problem in some way, okay? Look at some of these different ways in which this child is behaving. Make sure the child gets the necessary help that the child needs. But as we look further, my brother was like I said, when I didn't even know who my mother was, my brother was there. And although we got on each other's nerves, fought like cats and dogs, I still love him. And although, there were times where we would try to, share secrets, and sometimes I didn't feel like he kept to the bargain. These are things that siblings go through. We all go through our own things, certain things we don't like about our siblings, certain things we do like. My brother, a very giving person, very giving. Always trying to help other people and sometimes hurting himself while helping other people. Now, because he was a consistent person in my life, there were times when we go to school and he'd get into trouble. And they called me to the principal's office and put this letter in my backpack and say, make sure your mother gets this letter. Not realizing in the beginning what the letters were about. They were usually about him. But he didn't get into the trouble because my mother was basically really, one of the reasons why she sheltered him so much is because she felt that some of the things he was doing was because he did not receive the recognition or the support and the love that he deserved from his father. His father was more so reprimanding him more so than being there for him. How we get left at the library and he'd be a wrecking ball in that library because the librarian got the wrath of that one, where my father had no choice but to come back, or else we would have probably been showing up at the police station much sooner. Child neglect looks different in so many different ways, and although the parents are very good at being grandparents because they've learned all the lessons as parents, the children sometimes while growing up, some of those situations are not fixed. The counseling is not met. The children are not in counseling with the parent who they had the most problems with. So again, when the problem is not fixed, what happens later on pretty much sets the tone for a reality check. So growing up, like I said, this was our norm. So when we moved into different neighborhoods, that was my way of saying, okay, we are embracing this neighborhood, we're moving forward. My brother would go back to the other neighborhoods that we once lived in, still interact with the same people. Now, I thought that was a good quality for him to have in some cases, but in some cases, we were moved away for a reason. You are not to go back, because when you go back, you sometimes pick up some of those same bad habits. You sometimes find yourself in those same old crowds, and you don't persevere like you're supposed to. So, again, you know, we were met with a lot of different situations that occurred, and, you know, a lot of times my brother would use me as his confidant, and we'd share different secrets, we'd talk about different things or what have you, and sometimes, you know, we were the only two that could actually share certain things that went on, you know, but sometimes I'd see a bigger picture, and I would warn him, and I would tell him, give him advice that maybe you need to take a break from those people, or maybe you need to take some time away from that environment, or, you know, and sometimes he'd listen, sometimes it was harder for him to listen, because those people were his common friends. Those people were the people who he, you know, depended upon for certain things. And as these things progressed, you know, things occurred the way that they did. I mean, I don't even know what to say in some cases, but we live and we learn. And sometimes his lessons taught me lessons as well, you know. But again, as siblings, you share certain things with your siblings, and you grow and persevere from them, from those lessons as well as blessings. And I know I just repeated that. So as we grew older, you know, I went off to college, but when I went off to college, my brother came with me, meaning he'd want to continue our roles, but I was moving on to college, and I thought that he was going to do something different. Instead, he came on to college, and he met some of my friends, and he dated some of my friends, and, you know, sometimes it turned into something that you really did not want, because while he was on campus, maybe the girl was dating someone else, and it was hard for her to break up with the prior person, and my brother was there, and now they got caught up in a situation where, you know, it's combative. You meet up with that guy and you say, yo, what's up? You know, you dating my girl, and, you know, things turn into something quite different. And because I live on the campus, because I'm the one taking classes, coursework, a lot of it fell on me. And, you know, we had to talk about that, and then he ended up leaving the campus. And, you know, sometimes it's a lonely road when you are raised in different environments where you don't have the necessary support. My mother was very supportive of my brother, and I believe I was supportive at times, but sometimes because we love someone so much, we hinder them. And God will leave certain hints telling you to separate. It's time for you to separate. Let them grow here and you grow there. And it's hard to sometimes tell the person that. And no matter which ways you can tell that person that you are being moved somewhere else, sometimes they just don't get it. So although I told my brother, I said, look, you know, I'm going to have to separate for a period of time. He did not understand what I was trying to tell him. And the family, with all the different things that were going on, I really, like I said, God will separate you. And sometimes it's hard for other people to understand. When I separated, I told him, I said, be mindful of the company in which you keep. And it doesn't matter who the individuals are. You know, sometimes you can't go out to eat with certain people, because you go and you leave and they put something in your drink, or they put something in your food. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a stranger that you sat down and ate with, and they compromise you. I told my brother to be mindful of these things. I don't know, sometimes my brother, you know, because his heart is so big, you know, he will love his father, and he will love everyone. He'll love his friends. He'll love a person he just met and trust them in such a way. I'm sharing this, but I don't even know why I'm sharing this right now, but I'm sharing this because I feel as though the way that I was compromised in the family, where people were bringing me a separate plate. All this food was delivered on my grandmother's birthday, for her birthday party. And they when they came back with a separate plate of food for me. And all the other food was meant for everyone else. It just reminded me of my childhood all over again. How I was constantly separated, and how this is how they usually do it. In that concept of that, in that family breakdown, they would separate. Anytime you're being separated from a whole group of everyone else supposed to be treated well, you have to think about that. And again, I feel like I have to keep doing this, and I don't even know why. This family did a great deal of damage in that way. And God He's showing so many different things right now. And He's showing how we as individuals have got to wake up and learn from the mistakes of other people. Because when people tend to hurt other people, and you sit there and you watch that and you participate in it, then you're a part of the problem. That was another reason why I left. I was working at the school, and I loved working with these children. But I noticed some of the things that were going on, where the principal would tell the kids, tell her own children, do not eat the school lunch. But she was buying the school lunch and preparing, even feeding these children this food, which she didn't want her own children to eat. And even when I said something, it was a big hoo-ha, The thing is that I cannot participate in something that I don't believe is right. And if I feel something is wrong, I'm going to say something about it. And I did not like that whole concept. And of course, they did not want me to come back the next year, of course, so they did not sequester me. But one of the teachers stepped out and said, I want you to come back, and left a message for me. I really appreciate that teacher for doing that, because that said that I was of value there. But what about those children? What about those families? Sometimes you can say so much and people will not hear you because they're so caught up in what it is that they want. So much like all these buildings, people building up all these buildings. You building up all these buildings for people to get work? I hope you are, because I hope these buildings are so that these people can have jobs. And I hope that when you build up these apartment complexes, you're making it affordable for people to live in. Because what I'm looking at, my surroundings, it looks like a lot more homelessness is going on. When I go from state to state and I observe, I hope that our government is doing well by us. And again, every time I'm trying to make a point, God is trying to direct us to get on board in the right direction. And my voice might just be a wake-up call to some who are really not realizing it. I don't know. But I hope that we are waking up to what's going on in our surroundings, and I hope that we are making this world a better place. Because if we're not helping, are we hindering, is the question. In order to love others, you must love yourself first. And in loving yourself, again, I did not want to hinder my brother. My brother was such a big heart. I see all my brothers as having a big heart, but the outside world might not see them as that, because sometimes they don't get the opportunities that they are supposed to be receiving, all because of the way that they look in some places. Not all. But when I'm talking on this platform, it's really to boost awareness so that we can all become better, so that we can improve who we are and what we do. One of the things that I was punished for later on as well is my brother and his girlfriend was separating, and they had a child. and their daughter was made to live with my brother. My brother called me one night and was crying, and he was, furious because he did not know how he was going to raise a daughter. And he asked me to move in with him, and I moved in with him. And instead of me being his sister, I became like a mother of this child, and I became almost like a wife, because without, of course, living with him in the bedroom and all other stuff, horrible. It was almost like I moved in and I had to take care of a child. He had a pet, and he was still, doing his same thing. So I would have to tell him, look, what's going on? You're going to help with this child. And he'd be like, yeah, I'll be back. And he'd go and run around and do whatever it is that he chose to do. But I was left raising this child. It was a great deal of pressure on me. And I remember spanking this child once because she didn't want to do her homework. And, the saddest thing about it was, as I believe this child really wanted her father. And I didn't see it at the time. And I'm apologizing right now, Patrice, because I really did not see that that's really what you needed. You really needed and wanted your father. And I was placed under a great deal of pressure because I was teaching at the time in the South Bronx. And I was raising a child, who was really my niece. And I was also trying to take care of a household because he wanted breakfast and he wanted food made. And it was so much pressure. And, in a way, I had a fear of my brother at the time as well. And it got to be too much, and I had to leave. And he felt abandoned when I left, but it was just too much on one person. And I didn't feel like I should have been a mother to a child who really needed her mother at the time. I don't know what was going on with the two of them as to why they were unable to get it together at that point in time, but I spanked that child, and I did not want to ever raise my hand to that child, but it became too much. And that is the reason why I separated at that time. We, don't really look at the family dynamics. And when I look at my childhood, I raised siblings of my own. I raised cousins of my own. I was always raising and taking care of everyone in my surroundings. And it wasn't fair to me as a child, and it wasn't fair to me as an adult. And when I chose to leave, my brother was really hurt behind that. And I did not mean to, like I said, spank his child. I didn't mean to. I was literally there taking care of, helping her with her after school homework, trying to do lesson plans, trying to make dinner, trying to make sure that I answered the door to people who were coming to that house who I don't believe meant the household any good. And when I tried to speak to my brother about it, he did not understand. Sometimes we could put ourselves in harm's way, and not even realize it. Some of the reasons why I was behaving and having to leave is because I was there having to protect the child from people coming or knocking at that door who did not mean us well. And again, like I said, you could tell your brother, you could tell people, but they might not be able to see what you see. All my life, I've seen certain things before certain things happen, and I've told people, and they don't listen, and by me separating, by me leaving, that is when I thought I had a voice of my own to move forward. And even then, I didn't realize that I was going to a household where an aunt, was there who did not mean me well. Sometimes we look at a family dynamics and we say, oh, but that's my family. I used to believe that, but now I realize that your friends could be your closer family members. It's so important that we look at ourselves and we learn to love ourselves so that we are able to deal with the people around us. Again, my apologies to my niece for spanking her, because honestly, I think she was acting out. She didn't want to do her homework. She didn't want to do anything. And I think it was because she probably missed her mother as well. Missed her mother and her father. And although I've apologized to her in person because I felt like there was a blockage between the two of us, and I realized that could have been because I spanked her. regardless of what the situation is, we have to grow and persevere. We have to become better. We have to improve our circumstances by being better people. For if we do not improve our circumstances, improve our behavior, we'll have a nation of people who are not healed. And unhealed people can turn a nation into a war zone. And I hope that we are improving our circumstances. It is so lovely being you as well as myself. I'm trying to heal myself as well as others while we are growing and persevering. Have a wonderful day. And I know this made a turn for another turn, but again, we are healing and we're growing. And in order for us to grow, we have to also own up to the things that we did not do as well. And again, I am becoming a better person, just as I hope others are as well. Bye.